Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulullah. Today Allah's willing will be looking at an interesting story from the glorious Quran, the story of Isah, the first public miracle of Isah alayhi salam, whom we know as Jesus alayhi salam. But before we go into that story, I would like to lay a foundation, and this foundation inshallah would assist us in learning some phrases from the story, a phrase in which the non-believers have tried to use that phrase and confuse the believers and cast doubt into the hearts of the believers. So first we should understand that Rasulullah doesn't utter except from what had been revealed to him. And in fact, if the Prophet ﷺ was to utter or say something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never brought down, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ. And if Muhammad had made about us some saying, لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ, would have certainly hold him by his right. ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينِ, would have cut from him his iota. So from this we understand that the Prophet ﷺ never utters or says something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not revealed to him. And today we see so many non-Muslims trying to use some words from here and there to confuse the Muslim. This is only possible because the Prophet ﷺ had kept the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And secondly, as Muslims we should believe that the words of the Quran are solely the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the sayings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what a lot of people don't know or don't understand, especially coming from the non-believers, are the fact that the sayings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala contained in it the sayings of other people, the sayings of angels, the sayings of prophets, the sayings of humans, and the sayings of, in fact, animals, jinns inclusive. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrated the event that happened between some angels and Ibrahim alayhi salam, when these angels came down and gave Ibrahim alayhi salam some glad tidings of having a son, what did the angels say? Because they were on a mission to go destroy the people of Lut, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrated that قَالُوا إِنَّا مُهْلِكُ أَهْلِ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ. They, the angels, said, we will destroy the people of this town. Inna ahlaha kanu zalimin. Indeed, the people of the town are wrongdoers, are evil people. They do nothing but evil. And Ibrahim alayhi salam responded by saying something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrated that Ibrahim said, Inna fiha Lut. These are the words of Ibrahim. In that town is Lut alayhi salam, another prophet. Also in the Quran we would see the sayings of others. For example, Luqman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrated, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِبَنِيهِ. And when Luqman said to his son, وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ, while advising the son of his, يَا بُنَيَّ, O son of mine, لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ, do not associate partners to Allah. إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ, to the end of the verse. In this same Quran we'll see the sayings of animals. For example, the ant in Surah Al-Naml, the chapter of ant. And also the sayings of jinns. When we look at Surah Al-Ahqaf, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said regarding them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذْ صَرَفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفَرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ فَلَمَّا حَضَرُوهُ قَالُوا أَنصِتُوا. The jinns said, listen. قَالُوا أَنصِتُوا. These are their wordings. Listen. They said to themselves, listen. فَلَمَّا قُضِيَ وَلَّوْا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ. And they went back to the people, warning them. What do they say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continued and said, قَالُوا يَا قَوْمَنَا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا كِتَابًا أُنزِلَ مِن بَعْدِ مُوسَى مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ يَهْدِي إِلَى الْحَقِّ وَإِلَى طَرِيقٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. This is what the jinns were telling themselves. O our people, we have had a book revealed after Moses, confirming what was before it, which guides to the truth and to the straight path. So these are the wordings of the jinns talking to themselves. So we shouldn't confuse this and try to associate these words to someone else. Having established this foundation, inshallah, we'll proceed to the story. In Surah Al-Maryam, verse 27, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, فَأَتَتْ بِهِ قَوْمَهَا تَحْمِلُ. So Mary came to her people holding Isa alayhi salam, holding Jesus. So when her people saw her, they were shocked and they said, قَالُوا, they said, قالوا يا مريم لقد جئت شيئا فريا. Oh Mary, you've done something unprecedented. We don't know your family with this. We don't know the family or the household of Imran with this. And they, the people, continued in the next verse. Ya ukhta Harun, Ya ukhta Harun, O the sister of Aron, O the sister of Harun. ما كان أبوك امرأ سوء وما كانت أمك بغيا. that your dad is not known to be an evil man, your mom is not known to be unchaste. The non-believers try to use this particular phrase to cast doubt into the hearts of the believers by saying that the Prophet ﷺ was confused. How can you attach these words to the Prophet ﷺ? These are the words of her own people. Remember what the verse said initially. فَأَتَتْ بِهِ قَوْمَهَا تَحْمِلُ. She brought him to her own people, holding Isa alayhi salam. This is what the verse said. قالوا, they said, her own people said, Ya Maryamu laqad ji'ti shay'an fariya. And they continued in the next verse, which contained Ya ukhta Harun, or the sister of Aron, or the sister of Harun. So to the non-believers, this verse is talking about Harun, the brother of Musa. And in fact, in the hadith of Mughira bin Shu'b, when he went to Najran, he met some people there and they confronted him, telling him about this particular verse. They said, إِنَّكُمْ تَقْرَعُونَ يَا أُخْتَ هَارُونَ وَمُوسَى قَبْلَ عِيسَى بِكَذَا وَكَذَا. These people told Mughira that you guys normally recite Ya Ukhta Harun, or the sister of Harun, and Musa is before Isa with so and so number of years. So Mughira kept it to himself. When he returned back to the Prophet ﷺ, he narrated what transpired between him and these people to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ responded by saying, إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يُسَمُّونَ بِأَنْبِيَائِهِمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Prophet ﷺ explained that they verily name people with the names of the prophets and the names of the righteous people that had passed before them. So as Muslims, we shouldn't confuse these statements. These are not the words of the Prophet ﷺ, but the words of her own people, and they best understand what they meant by Ya Ukhta Harun, or who they are referring to Harun. As Muslims, we can't just say the Harun here refers to the brother of Musa alayhi salam, who had come 600 years before Maryam. In fact, some would say, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use unfamiliar terms with the people in which the Prophet ﷺ was communicating to? And this is the reason why I said in the first instance that we should understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing word for word what these people said. So why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do that when what they said is totally different from what they want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to tell the Prophet ﷺ? Going back to the foundation, we would understand that this is not the first time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is narrating an event and what transpired between people or what they said. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tries to reveal what they said word for word. However, the scholars have tried to explain this controversial verse, Ya Ukhta Harun. Qurtubi said in his exegesis that it is possible, some said it is possible that she has a brother called Harun, and this is the reason why they said Ya Ukhta Harun. Some also said it is possible that there is a man called Harun, and this man is known to be a righteous person. He's known to devote his time to the worship of Allah or to the worship of God. So they try to associate or liken her to him by calling her Ya Ukhta Harun. We know you to be a righteous person. We know you to devote your time to the worship of God. Qurtubi also mentioned that some think that during her own time there's a man called Harun. This man is a transgressor. He is the very definition of an evil person, very immoral. So they try to liken her to this person, and that's the reason why they said Ya Ukhta Harun. You've done something evil according to them. And this is the reason why they further said, Ma kana abuki imra'a sawa'in wa ma kanat ummuki baghiya. We don't know your father to be an evil person. We don't know your mother to be unchaste. Funny enough, there's nothing that indicates in this verse that Harun refers to the brother of Musa. But then you see people trying to discredit the Prophet ﷺ. How do we know if a verse is referring to Musa's brother? We look at three things. The first, it's either Musa and Harun's name come side by side in a particular verse, or you see when Harun's name is mentioned, you would see elements of prophethood attached to the name. And lastly, we would see Musa alayhi salam talking about his brother Harun. We will check for the word Harun in the whole of the Quran and see what it says about that name. And we would see if that verse, Ya Ukhta Harun, has either of these three qualities, then for sure it is talking about the brother of Musa alayhi salam. So in the whole of the Quran we have Harun mentioned 20 times, as you can see here. It is mentioned 20 times. The first is, you see, Musa wa Harun. Musa and Harun are mentioned side by side in this particular verse. In the next verse we would see, in Surah An-Nisa, we would see that Harun is mentioned in this verse, and in this verse we found the elements of prophethood. Inna awhayna ilayka kama awhayna ila Nuhin. We have revealed to you, O Muhammad, just the way we reveal to Nuh, that's Nuh alayhi salam, wa nabiyyina min ba'di, and other prophets. The names of Prophet Ishaq, Ismail, Ya'qub, and the rest we mentioned, including Harun wa Sulaiman. As you can see, the Harun. So the elements of prophethood is mentioned in this particular verse. In the next verse found in Surah Al-An'am, we would see that Musa and Harun comes side by side, which indicates that Harun is the brother of Musa. The next verse, which is Surah Al-A'raf, Rabbi Musa wa Harun. As you can see, Musa and Harun side by side. So we'll go a bit up. When we check the next verse, Surah Al-A'raf, again we'd realize Musa and Harun comes side by side. When we check the next verse, also would realize Musa wa Harun, thumma ba'athna min ba'dihim Musa wa Harun, and then we send after them Musa and Harun. In the next verse, which is Surah Al-Maryam, we realize that this is the only verse Harun was mentioned, and there is no any sign of Musa alayhi salam. There is no any sign of prophethood, and there is no any sign of Musa talking about Harun, which indicates that this could refer to someone else and not necessarily Harun, the brother of Musa. When we check the next, which is this Surah Al-Maryam, we realize Harun is mentioned, but the elements of prophethood was attached to the name Harun, which is Nabiya. So let's move forward. We check the next verse in Surah Al-Taha, we realize Harun akhi, Harun my brother. This is Musa talking about Harun. In the next verse, Surah Al-Taha, we would also realize Qalu amanna bi Rabbi Harun wa Musa, Harun and Musa side by side. In the next verse, which is Surah Al-Taha, we realize that Harun is talking to his people. He said, وَلَقَدْ قَالَ لَهُمْ هَارُونَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. Harun told them from before, يَا قَوْمِ إِنَّمَا فُتِنْتُمْ. You are only tested, O people. وَإِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ فَاتَّبِعُونِي وَأَطِيعُوا أَمْرِي. Follow me and obey my instructions. So elements of prophethood is clear in this text. The next verse, which is also Surah Al-Taha, would realize Musa speaking to Harun. He said, قَالَ يَا هَارُونَ مَا مَنَعَكَ إِذْ رَعَيْتَهُمْ ضَلُّوا. O Harun, what stopped you when you saw them going astray? In the next verse, which is Surah Al-Anbiya, would realize وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. Harun and Musa side by side. Let's move up. In the next verse, which is Surah Al-Mu'minun, would realize ثُمَّ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى وَأَخَاهُ هَارُونَ. And then we sent Musa and his brother Harun. Harun and Musa side by side. In the next verse, we realize Surah Al-Furqan وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الكتاب وجعلنا معه أخاه هارون. Harun in the same verse. In the next verse, Surah Al-Shu'ara, would realize Musa speaking وَيَضِيقُ صَدْرِي وَلَا يَنْطَلِقُ لِسَانِي فَأَرْسِلْ إِلَى هَارُونَ, when he was appealing that Allah should make Harun his minister to meet Fir'aun. In the next verse, Surah Al-Shu'ara, Rabbi Musa wa Harun. Harun and Musa side by side. So let's move a bit up. The next verse, which is Surah Al-Qasas, would realize وَأَخِي هَارُونَ هُوَ أَفْسَحُ مِنِّي لِسَانًا. This is Musa speaking regarding his brother Harun, hoping that his brother Harun would join him in his mission to Fir'aun. In the next verse, Surah Al-Saffat, وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. Musa and Harun side by side. And in the 20th verse, As-Saffat also would realize سَلَامٌ عَلَى مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. Musa and Harun side by side. So it is now obvious that Ya Ukhta Harun is not said by Musa. There is no elements of prophethood in that verse, and there is no Musa in that verse. The name Harun and Musa is not in that verse. It is now clear that the non-believers are only trying to discredit the Prophet ﷺ and discredit the Quran, but they have failed woefully. So let's continue. After they accused Maryam, she really doesn't know how to respond back to them. What she did was just to point to the boy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَأَشَارَتْ إِلَيْهِ, and she pointed to him. قَالُوا, her people said, كَيْفَ نُكَلِّمُ مَنْ كَانَ فِي الْمَهْدِ صَبِيًّا. How can we speak to a child that is still in his cradle? And here the miracle happened. Isa alayhi salam, Jesus spoke. قال, he said, إِنِّي عَبَدُ اللَّهِ آتَانِيَ الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا. I am the servant of Allah. He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has given me the book, or has given me the revelation, and has made me a prophet. Subhanallah. Allah had made me a prophet as a child, as an infant. Allah had already made him a prophet, subhanallah. And this is the reason why Isa alayhi salam, Jesus alayhi salam, is so special to us Muslims, and won't sit and see people ridicule him or insult him. May Allah increase the love we have for Isa alayhi salam, the son of Mary, much more than we feel currently. So this is the first public miracle performed by Jesus alayhi salam. So if anyone comes and try to cast doubt into you as a Muslim, tell him that no, this verse doesn't indicate that it is referring to Musa alayhi salam. It could be anybody, and this is the reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said they used to name themselves with the names of prophets and the righteous people that came before them. So it could be anybody. On this note, I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.